Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tera.
What do we have going on today, Tera?
We are finally catching up with Sarah J Maas and finishing part 2, or like 3 and 4 in the book. I don't know. The second half of Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath. So
Woo, we are here. Now we get to talk about all the things.
And for all of you people who have read this a while ago, I'm sorry, because it ends horribly to have to wait. Like, I don't even want to wait 2 weeks that I'm going to have to wait from finishing this book to the new release. So,
right?
You have, like, I don't know, like, patience out the ass, something, because
no, it's been like years of just going down rabbit holes and seeing what everyone's theories are and how they kind of measure up against your own theories for what's happening, but no one knows what the hell's going on. Like, I'm so sick of watching another theory, like TikTok or a video or any like blog post. I just want to know what happens already. So lucky for us, by the time this episode airs, House of Flame and Shadow is probably going to be out or hours from being released. So if you are like me or Tera, I think we have ours like pre-ordered on the Kindle. So those will be released at midnight. But if you're Central Time US, I think we actually get those at 11 p.m. like Monday night. So we could like get a head start reading, which I plan on doing. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to be off the map. Kids can't reach me. Husband can't reach me. I'm just going to be locked up reading.
Yeah. I think I also have it on Audible, so I'm going to do what I did with this. Like, I read the second half of this book in like 5 hours because I had my Audible going at 3 times the speed and was just following along in my Kindles. So that will probably be what I'm doing.
Have you seen real life book reviewers' little Instagram reel where her husband was posting like, oh, how it is being married to like an audiobook listener?
I felt seen in that because like all the things were me. I'm like, oh, so other people do this. That's great.
Yes, we order the physical book and then we're like, can't wait to read it on my Kindle or my phone, or it's like talking a different language when it's playing at triple speed. Like Kyle can't understand what the hell's going on.
Justin comes in and he's like, Is that English? Like what's going on here? And it's great. It's like a hiding mechanism because like he always randomly comes in on the spicy scenes.
Oh.
But he can't understand that it's a spicy scene. And so I'm like, great, go.
Bye. Yes. Very, very much feeling seen.
Like, he came in on the second chapter of this part that we're discussing, and
that's
he did
funny.
not catch on what was going on.
If you're just tuning in, so we split each Sarah J Maas book just right down the middle. So we covered the first 38 chapters last week, and we ended on when Ethan and Bryce go to visit the Mystics.
And Therian was there, because it was all Therian's dumb idea.
Yes, Therian has many dumb ideas in the second half of this book. Like, he goes from being one of my favorite comic relief characters to, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
I feel like he started at the beginning of this book, too. Like, because we get introduced with this dumb idea that he, like, fell for the like queen's daughter.
Didn't even
like,
fall
stole
for her. He just seduced her.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, when I say fell for her, like, he fell for her looks and seduced her and took her virginity. And then he's like, peace, like, fuck boy moment out the ass. And then now he's like living with the repercussions of that.
Yes. And having to live with the repercussions of that with a queen who is not to be trifled with. She seems, I don't know, I get really bad kind of evil vibes from her.
She reminds me of Maeve. Like, if Maeve had a daughter, how Maeve would be acting with that daughter.
That's, yes. Yep. I agree with that observation. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he royally fucked himself.
Oh.
And he has not changed his behavior to like act better since.
No, I mean, we'll talk about more examples of this that happen in the second half. But yeah, Therian just like, I don't know why I like blocked all of this out from my memory for some reason. I was just like, okay, he was just so funny and lovable. And then this second half, I was just like, what are you doing? But anywho, so they go to visit the Mystics. And I think last week we ended on she ends up going to the Prince of Hell named Thanatos. And Thanatos is like, let me see them because he wants to know who's visiting him and, you know, spying around right now. And then this chapter picks up with him kind of taking revenge on them and feasting like on the male mystic. And I think shit just hits the fan and they start unplugging the guy. So it's very much, I think we talked about like Matrix last time and some other stuff. And it's just like undoing all the tubes, even though this guy is like somewhere else, like his soul has like gone somewhere else. And they're just trying to unhook him as fast as possible. And a lot of the machinery breaks and stuff. And the astronomer is not happy about that.
And there's some mention of like they might not make it out, basically.
Yeah.
If you unplug them, that's bad for them.
And they do it anyway.
And then the machinery breaks.
And I don't think they leave on good terms. The astronomers basically like, just, you know, get out. You're not welcome back here type of thing. So then the next chapter, you want to talk about it because you talked about your husband walking in triple speed part, but.
So Hunt got in trouble for leaving Celestina on her, I guess, like engagement party night, wedding party night, I don't know, reception, like whatever you want to call
your procreation celebration night.
Yeah. Anyway, so he got in trouble because he went to Bryce's house because that's when Sabine was there, like pissed off that like they're gonna make a coup for the wolves, right? So his punishment was to spend 2 weeks at the barracks. So he does not get to see Bryce. And so this chapter, we see them taking things into their own hands and having a little phone sex.
Literally into their own hands.
Yes. And so, yeah, we get like one of our first spicy, like full spicy scenes with Bryce and Hunt.
That is all we'll talk about because it was quite spicy. It was like late at night. I think Bryce had her apartment to herself this night, didn't she? Or something like that? Or she was being very quiet. I can't remember the details, but
I think she had it to herself because at this point, Ethan has moved to Ruins, right? And then like if Hunt's not there, she's by herself. Which I think we have had other spicy scenes from them, but this is
they've
like the
done
first
like oral for each other.
Yeah.
Like back and forth. And then this one, they're just, you know, separated. So what else are you going to do? So funny.
Yeah. They're building up still.
Yes. Building up. Their mating bond has snapped into place and they're kind of like, it's kind of like an ACOTAR when Rhysand was talking about how the mating bond works and how they get very territorial and like all they can see is their mate and getting with their mate. And pretty much they just hook up in a cabin for like several days straight before, you know, greeting the rest of the world. And so they're very much in that kind of mode. It's very similar.
Well, and that happened to Rowan and Aelin too. Like he got very territorial.
And then we move on to more training for Bryce because as different people have hinted, she has not, you know, gone below the tip of the iceberg as far as what she can do with her powers. So she spends more time with Prince Cormac, training specifically in this teleporting ability. You worded it so funny, like being kind of like a little battery that she has to be charged up to be able to do. So she's doing that and it's exhausting to her.
Although it is quite funny how other people react to that as they're coming in on that scene. Like they're like, wait a minute, she what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Flynn. Like I enjoy the hell out of Flynn. Like he is comedy, but like a sarcastic comedy. And he's like flirtatious and like.
Didn't they get into like a little tiff in the second half? And he started teasing Bryce about how she used to write her name Lady Bryce Flynn or whatever.
Yeah, and then she's like, basically, I grew. Like, I got better, and you're still stuck. where you were.
Did this happen to you? But as I was listening to the Audible version of it, I was like, why does Tristan Flynn have a like Southern accent? Did you pick up on that?
No, but like Cormac has like a like Scottish Irish accent or something. I was reading it 3 times the speed. It'd probably be more obvious which one it is if I wasn't. But like I did not picture that in my head.
I know. That was a very bold choice to have him with that accent.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense with his name. Like that is like a, Scottish or Irish sounding name.
And it kind of makes sense as you start getting more into the world building that starts to unfold in this half of the book, because you made this observation in ACOTAR when you were looking at the map of Prithian, and you're like, oh, it kind of looks like Europe with like, Ireland over here and all of that stuff. And if the world building proves true when we read Flame and Shadow, and Cormac and the Avalon Fae are from like this missing court that was on a little misty isle, that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I guess the accent.
So I enjoyed that. It was like, I don't read my characters in accents. So like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I should be reading them in accents, but I'm not that great at like accents in my head. It would sound very weird.
I mean, I definitely was not expecting the Southern accent from Flynn. I was like, didn't he grow up with these people? None of them have an accent. Like, where did he get his from? But I don't know.
I don't know if he did, in fact, grow up with them, or if like
maybe just college.
Kind of in London, like you have people that live all over England, but if they're aristocrats, they come in contact a lot because of like being aristocrats, right? And he is. So I'm wondering if maybe it's something like that where they didn't actually grow up together, but they kind of did at these events that everybody was supposed to attend.
Societally speaking. Yeah. That would make sense.
So they've been friends their whole lives, but weren't next door neighbors kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of people were like kind of mad about the casting for Rhysand's character in ACOTAR because he has like a very East Coast kind of accent. And a lot of people pictured him having like a British accent. And I was just like, I didn't picture that at all. I'm like, I thought the actor got it pretty accurate with what I was just doing in my head. So I don't know. It's just weird.
I don't think I pictured Rhys with the English accent either. Like, because this is very stereotypical, but like, he just doesn't seem like that kind of a posh guy. He seems more like a New York
swagger,
like personality, like take no shit. I'm the top. Whereas like, that's not the vibe I get from British people.
Like, just let us know if we're totally off base here, people.
Although, like, Lucifer has a British accent.
I was going to bring up Lucifer. Here we go.
And I love that. So, like, I don't know. I'm just, like, all over the place with my... Like, I feel like the British accent really fits Lucifer's personality.
If you haven't tuned in before, Tera is adamant that Rhysand's character, like, reminds her of the Lucifer actor from that television series, which I've only seen, like, the first season of, so
he grows from the first season. Like,
okay,
I've been trying to get Sandra to like watch the series, and she won't. But here I've sat and read how many books now? 8, 5.
Hey, I'm in the 13, second season.
14, 15, like 800-page books, and she's in the second season. Like, she's made it like 12 episodes.
What I'm hearing is my bestie is keeping score.
Actually, even more books, because I also read The Fourth Wing on my break from reading.
I got to keep you busy, you know?
Yes. No, I guess I'm all over the place because I think that fits his swaggering personality right there.
He does have the swaggering, but I just found Lucifer to be like a little bit goofy, you know, whereas Rhysand seemed more like tragic and had that swaggering confidence that was a mask.
I could see Tristan having a British accent. Like that would fit in my head. And that's what I envisioned of him, is like he's like some sort of like British aristocrat.
Yeah.
kind of thing. And that just could be that that's really the only aristocrats that I know of, because we don't really have those here in America. So like maybe that's why it just like automatically like, oh, he's British.
Yeah, but back to Tristan and Declan. Pretty much their kind of roles the second half of the book is Declan doing what he does, which is hacking into video and audio systems. And so they learned that Danica was deep in some shit, doing some behind the scenes investigation because Mordak is her father and she is half bloodhound and she's able to smell like heritages and bloodlines and stuff, like very sensitive nose to that sort of thing. So they start combing through gallery footage of times that Danica had visited Bryce. And it was like anytime Bryce stepped out of the room, Danica would be like very focused on grabbing a book to like go through it and stuff behind the scenes and not telling anyone about it. So they're locating this kind of footage. And then they do find that Danica was interested in a book called Wolves Through Time. And it basically was hiding the fact that there was another Fendir. What's the word?
Heir.
Yeah, heir. Another Fendir heir.
One of the other things that they figure out through this research is that the wolves are not actually wolves.
Mm-hmm.
That they were fae that went into their wolf form and just stayed. So I thought that was very interesting and kind of a tie back to like both Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, because like the wolves, the shifting into animals and things like that, because we saw that in Throne of Glass with like Rowan and his cobble.
Do you remember Fenris, Moonbeam? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I loved Fenris.
Fenris was amazing. And it's interesting how close his name looks to Fendir, right?
Mhm.
Like, it just wouldn't surprise me that Sarah J Maas like plans these things out to like visually allude to those kinds of connections. But
and then you also had it in ACOTAR with the wolf that kind of started it all. Which, what was his name? It was close too, wasn't it?
Are you talking about the one that Tamlin sent over that Feyre killed? Andrus.
Andrus, okay.
Uh-huh.
So you see that too. And so you see some connection with the Spring Court.
Uh-huh.
And then we've got potential connections with the Dusk Court that no longer exists in ACOTAR, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Dusk Truth, if we're putting our theories in place.
Even like the Pegasuses that came from this prison island in ACOTAR. Mm-hmm. There's like so many things. Like if Bryce is like, turns out to be an heir or someone important from that line.
I really hope that she is the heir to the Pegasuses, because yes, it's so like weird to say that word. Anyway, I hope she is, because like little, like it's been hinted like the connection with unicorns, or not unicorn, Pegasus and unicorns and like all of those with her throughout the book. And I really hope that that is something that Sarah J Maas was like comically putting in there, you know, like I really do.
Even the slumber party in Silver Flames with Emery and Nesta and
the little
Gwen.
Pegasus.
Yeah. She's like putting it out there. There was even a post that Sarah J Maas posted like when she was talking about what the next Crescent City book was going to be called, and she's like working at her computer typing the title out, you know, House of Flame and Shadow, and she has her like little purple, like was it purple? Might have been a different color. My Little Pony, like
Jelly Jubilee.
Desk. Her little Jelly Jubilee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like with the Pegasuses, being on the covers of all of these, like I really hope that that comes back in, because I love me some Pegasus. Like Hercules in the first scene were little like,
oh my god,
it's just so cute.
So cute.
If I were able to create an animal that automatically becomes real, it would be that. Like it'd be a little horse with wings.
Bryce loses her shit when she sees otters. Like wait until she sees a unicorn Pegasus. She will lose her shit.
Yes. So the Pegasus like word just like brought me back to Gilmore Girls, where they were trying to figure out the plural of cul-de-sacs. And it's like coals de sac.
Cul de sac. Uh-huh.
Like, but the S is on coal. So it's coals de sac.
Coals de sac.
Not cul-de-sacs. And so I'm like, that just doesn't sound right either. So anyway. I'm with Lorelai on that. Like that can't be right. But I digress. Pegasus doesn't sound right either.
And then Bryce visits the Wolf Prime because she is trying to get more information about why Danica might have been interested in wolf lineages, because maybe he'll be sentient enough to be able to answer that question or remember something that's important, right? And all he says is that the wolves yielded their true nature, right? And he kind of hints to the fact that they just accepted their place and bowed down to the Asteri. And then they talk about Ethan, like Bryce tells him what Sabine did to Ethan by ejecting him from her wolf pack. And he was basically willing to make Ethan an alpha.
Ethan is an alpha. And so he is basically like, well, Ethan deserves to be an alpha, basically, because that's his blood right.
Yes. And Ethan was also the one that realized that one of the mystics, the female that was at the astronomers, was an alpha wolf. And he remembers her scent.
The Prime gets a lot of visits this half of the book. Like, little old man's like, I'm tired, people, leave me alone. But Ethan also visits the Prime and is trying to get him to help him go and save this wolf that's a mystic. And she had mentioned that she had been sold into the mystic whatever at 3, and that she doesn't necessarily want to leave because at least if she's there, she knows her family is getting food. She's basically a slave there.
She also said her town was like Nena or something. Like, how much are you really buying that story? Because, I mean, she was 3 when she came over. Yeah.
The Prime recognizes it, right? And so when Ethan mentions that she's an alpha and she was sold into this at like the age of 3, the Prime hints that there is another Fendir heir. So I'm wondering if that made sense to him, like maybe he was traveling at the same time or something happened and one of his either kids or grandkids, I think she's like I get the impression that she's younger. So grandkids went missing. And so he hints that this is another heir of the Fendir line. But he also hints that she could take Sabine's place, right? And so that hints to me that she may be a little older, like maybe she's his kid.
Sabine had quite the reaction, didn't she, too, to this news? It was very suspicious.
Yeah. And so I don't quite know how old this lady is. Like, I don't know if like being a mystic keeps you younger looking or like she's a wolf, so she already is younger looking. So I don't know if she is in fact Danica's age or Sabine's age, but it was hinted that she would be the one to make it to where Sabine doesn't get control, which I'm all for because Sabine's a bitch.
Yeah, we've been so over Sabine, the series. Nothing good about her at all.
And then we see Bryce goes to Celestina and she needs Hunt to go to like the bone quarter, right? Like that's where she's visiting. Mm-hmm. And so she wants him to visit with her. And so she talks to Celestina and she's like, hey, I'm going to go visit my parents. And like Hunt is supposed to go with us. So can he like come and break his 2 weeks away, like staying in here and just go with me? And then he'll come back. And Celestina's like, no, he can just leave. He's like too much of a morale pool right now. He's not being fun to be around. So like
mopey.
But like make him stay the night so that like he doesn't know and then he can just leave tomorrow or whatever. And they obviously don't go to her parents' house and they go visit the bone quarter. And Baxian follows them. Baxian has seemed a little shifty, but like I told you, I kind of think he's going for the like right causes. Like he's not still in league with the Harpy and like the Hind. And I was happy that that was proven.
He's very cute in his eagerness to help improve like which side he's on, right?
Yeah.
While still being relegated to like hanging back at the comitium. Like Hunt is so mean to him. He's just like, yes. Go away. He's like treating him like a puppy.
He's like the little brother that like nobody wants around, right? Like,
yeah, I feel bad for him.
So Hunt has been very hard on him because he was like, you were like right in league with them before I left. And he's like, things change. People change. And we figure out the reason he changed is he is Danica's mate. And so when he met her, he like 180, like to be a better person for her. And
I mean, Danica is just keeping secrets left and right. There was like a throwaway line in the first book whenever Bryce and them were teasing Danica about how long it's been since she got laid.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh yeah, it's been like 3 years. And Danica is like correcting them like, oh, it's only been 2 years or something like that. And it was just that kind of like one single mention in the entire book. But it's like, that's what SJM is so good at, just sprinkling in like these little things.
It was 2 years ago that she met Baxian. And so she hasn't like, I think the comment that they made is not that since she's gotten laid, but since she's like fucked around. Right.
Yeah. She always just held her cards so close.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce, like you see Bryce getting very frustrated with what her relationship with Danica was, because being real and genuine is very important to Bryce. And she just feels like everything she learns is more evidence that proves otherwise, that like Bryce was living in like a fantasy land thinking that she was over here on this level, whenever behind the scenes Danica was like working on all this shit and not letting her in. And I don't know, it just kind of tarnishes their friendship in a way. I think she's just frustrated.
But then you see Bryce doing kind of a similar thing with keeping things from people, right?
Keeping things and then flaunting other things and pissing like Juniper off. And you know, adjacently Fury.
But on that, I can see where she came from. Like, she knew that the reason somebody else was getting it is because they had high-powered friends. And she's like, but you have a high-powered friend, too.
I'm a princess.
And so she used her princess title to, like, get Juniper the role. And Juniper's like, no, I need to get the role of principal on my own. But, like, she had. Like, the only reason the other person got it was because they used undue influence. So, like, if you, like, negate that, if you're like, hey, both sides have undue influence, like, give it based off of who's the best. Like, I think that that's where Bryce was trying to, like, make a point, is, like, both of these principal, like, interviewees or whatever you want to call them have powerful friends. So
I think Juniper's problem was, I mean, she was treated as like this amazing dancer, like top of her class, which she is. But I think it was after all that shit happened with the gates opening up and the demons, because Juniper decided to speak up at all these rich fucks that were just being like
assholes,
not wanting anything to do with the regular people, the regular citizens, and helping them. And Juniper spoke up and said something, and that pissed off a lot of influential people. But Juniper's always been the type that she doesn't want to say something. Like, if someone is being a certain way, like prejudiced against her in some kind of way, she won't say anything about it. She'll just take it and work harder, grit her teeth and work harder. And then Bryce goes and, you know, tries to defend Juniper and help her, and then you can see like Juniper is already experiencing blowback and comments from people from doing that, which she never wanted to do. And I would be the same way. I'm a Juniper in this situation.
I mean, I understand Juniper's, but I also understand, I think, where Bryce was coming from. She didn't want to like, she saw her friend was being hurt because like people weren't sticking up for her, I guess.
I like when Bryce is trying to call Juniper and Juniper's not answering the phone. And so she's like calling Fury, and like the first words out of Fury's mouth is, "You fucked up." She's like, I know.
I enjoy Fury, this book, because like you see like not a softer side of Fury, but like a reason behind Fury being the way she is. Like, she's still not soft at all, right? Like, but you see, I don't know, a different dimension when she's with Juniper than you have in the, and I adore it. Like, she's like, I'm gonna burn the world down for Juniper.
Yes, I'm hoping that we get that. Ever since you've like brought up that scene again, I'm like, I hope we get that down at the meat market.
Like, I hope we get an Imran kind of scene where it's like, you done pissed off the wrong person.
Yes.
But so we figure out the bone quarter is kind of like, nobody's there. Like, we find out about Second Light, right? Which is basically like, instead of going to a heaven type place that everybody thinks that they're going to when they like make it to the bone quarter, they are going to like a slaughterhouse, basically, of their souls are being sucked into Second Light and no longer existing anywhere for the rest of eternity. Like, they're just being used as like little batteries for Second Light.
Which this is what kind of initiates Ethan freaking out and being very concerned about Connor. Because then we see Ethan, like, he learns that Hypaxia is a necromancer. So he goes to Hypaxia and begs her to let him get in touch with Connor to make sure he's okay. And she's like, okay, but we have to wait until the autumn equinox because that's when the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. And so we can do it then. Which, funnily enough, the autumn equinox is also when the Comitium holds like an annual ball, which is such a fun scene for a variety of reasons.
We find out some things.
We do find some things, but I don't know if we've talked about the whole Agent Daybright and Rune thing. So Carmack enlists Rune to be able to like start communicating with this anonymous agent that's working on the rebel side, passing information along and then giving that to Cormac so that he can plan accordingly. And so, you know, in the background of this book, there's still the rebel Ophian war going on. So you have Pippa, who's making all these strategic moves and bringing the war to their continent and their city, Lunathion. And then you have Rune playing Mr. James Bond-ish in this in-between realm, getting very up close and personal with someone named Daybright. So you want to talk a little bit about how this goes?
And falling for Daybright. So, like, it is mentioned, I think the, like, initial parts of this were mentioned in the first half of the book, but it is mentioned that he knows the smell of this person. Like, he has met this person, and we were trying to figure out who he has met that this person could be, and a mind was blown when we figured out who this person was, because it's not anybody that was on my radar at all. But it totally makes sense.
Yes.
So we see him falling for this person, and they even have a spicy scene, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, I envisioned it like their mental, like,
it was almost like virtual sex with one another.
It was like a hologram is what I was picturing. Their holograms had sex. And so we see her like disappearing all the time because this guy is like ripping her out, and she keeps mentioning that like it's consensual, but he likes pain, basically.
He likes inflicting pain.
Yes. Yes. And so Rune is getting more and more beside himself because I'm fairly certain that this is his mate, right? He is like picked up on this, right? And so he is A, jealous that his mate is sleeping with somebody else, but B, mad that this guy is like hurting her, right? And so then they have their little sex scene, and he, like, I feel like he even tells her that like he's falling for her. I don't remember, but
yeah, I forget what his words were.
He's like, I know you'll be there because you are high up in the Asteri. So like, let's meet at this fountain. And so he goes to meet, and like the harpy and the hind are there, I think. And he's like, oh, okay, let's leave because like, I don't want to get her in trouble. Like, I don't want her to get caught. And so he kind of just walks off. And then when they talk later that night, she's like, yeah, I saw them. Like, that's why I didn't show up either. And let's just like forego this because I think this is a bad idea.
It was such a huge bummer moment for him because he spends the whole 2 weeks not really talking to Daybright the whole time. She's very, out of pocket. And so there's all this buildup, and then so much shit is happening at the ball. Like, you have Bryce showing up on Cormac's arm, but then she goes rogue, her and Hunt, and is just like to her father and the Asteri, who tuned in virtually again, like, oh yeah, Hunt is my mate, and like puts it all out there. So Hunt is now a prince by association, like a consort to her.
Because her father had previously said that like, you've been using the princess name, which makes you a princess. I've went ahead and changed all of your documents to say Princess Bryce. What's her last name?
Dannon.
And she is pissed. She's like, I am not a Dannon.
She is so pissed, and she's so upset with herself for falling right into his trap from all of the little instances that she pulled this little title trick.
The other thing that she used her title on is, we haven't mentioned this, but Ethan, when he was going back to save the mystic and then finds out that she's a wolf, he stole the rings that included the little like sprites. And so he let them out. And so then they had to try and figure out a reason that they should be able to keep the fire sprites and the other thing that was released, which was a dragon, right? And so to do that, Bryce is like, well, let's use our like royal decrees and say that we need them for protection. And so that's what they did. And that was the like final straw for her dad. He's like, oh, you've used it twice. Come on. You are now officially a princess.
This was a part that Tera texted me about that she absolutely loved, just the visual of walking into the guy's house, the frat house essentially that they live at. And then it's just like three little, naked little fire sprites sitting around the guys and then this dragon woman.
I also really I think the dragon is Flynn's mate. With the way he is acting, I'm like, this has got to be his mate. Like, he is so territorial over her. It is so funny, his like personality being territorial.
Didn't she kind of remind you of like Nesta? She reminded me of Nesta, being very feisty, closed off, and like you can tell that she probably feels something for Tristan, but she just has a wall up, just like Nesta did.
She also reminded me of Manon. Because Manon did that with Dorian too. Like, she's like, I'll give you what I'm willing to give you, but like, there will be no feelings kind of a thing. And so like, I think the dragon is like, enjoys Tristan, but isn't willing to like fall victim to another slavery, which is the main bond, just out of slavery.
She's very much looking at the world as, I can't depend on anyone, so I'm going to go ahead and make my plans to make sure I can help myself, which her name is Ariadne. So very much the Nesta Manon vibes. And I have a feeling we're going to grow to absolutely love her character once we see more of her.
That is also a Greek mythology name of a person that was enslaved.
There's so much buildup going on. I'm like, what is about to happen?
I truly enjoyed that connection, which we do see. She kind of sells herself into slavery, but by her own choice to the Viper Queen. And so every fight that she does for the Viper Queen goes to paying off her debt. So basically like what Quinlan was doing, Bryce. And she's like, this is a slavery that I get to choose. And so this is what I'm going to do. And so you see her disappear and then show back up the Viper Queens.
She disappeared at the first opportunity too. That's what pissed Tristan off because like they had one job. Hypaxia was so nervous because the witch coven there's a lot of murmurings that things are going to happen, kind of like a coup on the witch side, because Hypaxia is the named queen. And so there's all of this rumor that they're going to try and overthrow her and install someone else. So Hypaxia goes to our group of friends and is like, hey, can you get me a security detail? And so they put like Ethan on it, basically just a bunch of Sunball meatheads, right? Like, I don't know if they have actual like security experience.
Well, it was like Ethan and the dragon were the two main ones, right?
Yeah.
And poor Ethan, like first chance, like gets his little throat torn out. And he's like, I'm so horrible at this.
Don't you just, I feel so much for Ethan. Like he has lost so much and he has been like so good not trying to interfere with Bryce's happiness and her relationship with Hunt. Like he refuses to say anything about it, doesn't want to negatively impact anything. So he just keeps everything inside. And I'm like, my baby boy, I want you to be happy.
And bad things keep happening to him. Like when he was protecting Hypaxia, she went on a walk with Bryce and got attacked by this like Death Slayer or Death Stalker or whatever. And they end up killing the demon, but he is like down for the count. Like the first chance it got, it just like ripped his throat out, right? And he's dying, and they're like trying to save themselves, but also get to him fast enough that Hypaxia can like medwitch him. And so he is left healing in Hypaxia's like consulate. I don't know what you want to call it, but embassy. And he is feeling bad about himself, and he's thinking about the wolf that he left behind and stuff. Which, did you get vibes off of him and the wolf? Okay, I got mate vibes. Like that was part of the reason he wanted to go back, and he like couldn't get it off of his mind. Is like he felt a pull to her.
I forget what he said she smelled like, but it was like pine and embers or something like that. Like, and that's what the prime also says. Like, did she smell like this and that? And he's just like, yeah, very much mate vibes. And I'm like,
Yes.
I want this so badly for him. Like he needs something to go his way.
Especially if he is an alpha and she is the Fendir heir. Like, they could make a superpower alpha couple, right?
Can you imagine? What a way to make like Danica proud and fix
And
all
Connor.
of the shit that Sabine has done. Connor too.
So you see all of that happening at the same time that Bryce is trying to figure out, like, what the fuck is Dusk Truth? And
Project Thur.
And so you get like a climactic scene later in the book with that. But back to sorry, I forgot. There are more things that happen at this party.
So many things, like with Therian.
Yeah.
Who brings the River Queen's daughter and then continues just standing on the sidelines with her while this is her first time out and she wants to experience the ball. And he's just like, I'm not going to dance with you, and gets like some rando to dance with her.
And then he goes sleep with the rando?
Yeah, he goes to the bar and starts flirting with like a leopard shifter and then ends up sleeping with the leopard shifter. And it's like, come on, man. He just left the River Queen's daughter there.
He definitely has fuckboy, like,
yes,
vibes.
Oh my god, yes,
like so hardcore. So
Hunt and Bryce is coming
Celestina,
out.
Yeah, Celestina is like, oh, cool, that's great. Like, I like this. I'm all for this. And so does Asteri. And so Bryce's dad can't say jack crap. Like, it's already been approved. Like, you have no wiggle room in this. So he has to accept it, which is what Bryce and Hunt were angling at. And so basically Cormac is pissed because, like, he was not informed that this was happening. And this was his, like, guys to be here to find Emil, right? And so he gets very pissed. We also see another love connection as Bryce and Hunt are sneaking off to get some action. They sneak into a room that is occupied already.
They're like, oh, the door's locked. We're just going to barge in.
Yeah, like, we can break it. No big deal. And they walk in on Hypaxia and Celestina. And basically, Celestina is like, yeah, the reason I hooked her up with Rune is because, like, I wanted her here and protected. I had good feelings about Celestina before, but I have even better because, like, I like Hypaxia. I think Hypaxia is down for the cause of humans getting, like, everybody should be equal, right? And if Hypaxia and Celestina are in this kind of a relationship, and one that has been going on for quite a while, Celestina is probably also on that wavelength. And so everything that she's been saying about Shahar and being friends with her and being down for that, like, you get more of this was how she truly felt. Because I know this whole time she's been saying that, and Hunt's like, I don't know if I can believe her.
Celestina, I like her, but she also teeters on a very fine line too, because there's that fine line between, the villains saying that they will fuck everybody else if it saves the person they love. And we see some decisions that Celestina makes toward the end, like to protect Hypaxia. She throws other people under the bus too. So it's like that fine line there too. So doesn't Hypaxia remind you of Nehemia from Throne of Glass? Like a little.
I also get that from Juniper.
Yes, it's like a mixture, right? It's just like they're so intelligent and well-spoken, and they carry themselves with such grace. And because we saw the scene where Hypaxia was like dreading meeting her sister because she's never met the Hind face to face. And so Rune is like, well, do you want me to accompany her? And this is like 10 minutes before midnight when he's supposed to go meet Daybright at the fountain. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go with you. And so, of course, the Hind is standing over next to Pollux at the party. And they go over there, and the Hind is just being very cold and detached. And Pollux is being, an asshole and sneering at Hypaxia and stuff. And it's just, Hypaxia just, no one is on her level because she is so good and so kind. You know what I mean? And so you feel bad for her, too.
Yeah, I hope we get to see a Celestina burning the world down moment.
Oh, Tera wants that Celestina villain origin.
Well, like Fury. Like, I hope Fury and Celestina and Bryce and, like, our group burn it. But I want to see Celestina, like, not, like, straddle the line, but, like, really, like, no, I'm with her. You've screwed up by going after her or whatever, you know? Like, I want to see that. Like, I feel like we're going to get that with Fury in the meat market. Like, it's going to happen, but I want to see that for Celestina, too. I want her to get off the fence.
Yes, exactly. With Hypaxia and Juniper, like, and Celestina, it's like they're so kind and sweet to everyone all the time. You want to see them get down and dirty and like just stick up for something and just do something. It's kind of like how I feel about Elaine. Like everyone shits on Elaine from ACOTAR because she has not really done anything. But I feel like there's so much just boiling under the surface.
Oh, it's always the quiet ones. Like you push them past their point.
It's like a volcano.
And it's like a volcano and scorched earth. Like there is no coming back from this. Like you are going to get like your ass handed to you because you pushed the quiet one too far.
We're on the same page. We're like, we're so ready for this. Like all the nice quiet girls, we're ready. Come on.
Yes.
Show us.
Yes. So we make it through the party somehow. And Hunt and Bryce are still blue ballsing it because they can't get it together. I think that there was a comment, like, I think I may have texted you this. This is why I can't text you because I can't remember, like, what I've actually said during this or what I've texted. But there's a point where, like, Isaiah is looking over Hunt's phone and, like, Bryce had changed his, like her name in there to like Bryce Quinlan sucks my dick like a champ or something like that. And Isaiah's like, oh, okay. like I'm sure you didn't do that. And he's like, no, it's an inside joke. And he's like, it is.
This totally sounds like an inside joke type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of is, but like that part was not.
Hunt is so funny trying to be subtle. And
then like he makes the comment about like somebody laughing at his blue balls, and I think it was Isaiah again. and so I love this, like they're trying so hard to get together and everything is against it. Like, like they keep hitting roadblocks, and it's quite comical to me.
The second half of the book, because the first half is so much of like trying to track down what Sophie was up to, what Danica knew, where this Emile boy is. And so Bryce has already put it together by this point. She is like a little Aelin Ash River Galathinius. She's a little Selena Sardothian. She knows exactly what's going on. She's like picking up on little subtle comments and stuff from like the Viper Queen.
And she's enacting plans like Aelin did, like without telling anybody that this is a plan. She's like, and Hunt gets mad at her for this when he figures out what she did. And she's like, well,
a lot of people get mad at Bryce.
She's like, I couldn't trust that you would be interested in the boy and not the power.
Which you got to love Bryce for that, because she's always watching out for the underdog, like the ones that need help.
Well, because she's been that. Like she's half human. So she has been that, and she's not been accepted by the people in power and things like that. And so I think that calls back to her.
The scene where she like reveals what happened with Emile and like set up the adoption through her own parents and all of this, and Hunt sees the magnitude of everything he did, and he starts getting like teary-eyed and his eyes burning. He's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why are my eyeballs wet right now? And like it was just all the feels in that scene.
He's like, why am I leaking water?
Yeah. And like Emile has like survived years in a death camp. He's starved. He's like grown. He's like almost, I think he is a teenager, but he's like been so deprived of nutrients and stuff. He's just like all skin and bones.
And a life and love. Like I know Sophie loved him. Like, I mean, she gave her own life for him, which we discovered like Sophie is in fact dead. Like they didn't make it fast enough. And you asking what that little rock was a beacon for the queen of the ocean, right? They have like these little, like, it's gonna sound really bad, but like I envision like the Octonauts.
Octonauts to your stations.
Right? Like the little
oh my god. I mean, I can see it though. As a mom,
has everything.
I can see it.
Right? Like an adult version of the Octonaut ship, right? So like they saved them from, I think it's Pippa, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Hind. I think the Hind showed up to that too, right? Okay, so sorry, back up. So like our group goes to like make an attack on a part of the spine, right?
Yeah, they're doing a little espionage and sabotage.
Pippa is there and she goes to kill, like she kills like the people that were helping them, right? And so Cormac and all of our team are like, what the hell? Like those people were on our side. Why are you killing them? And Pippa's like, well, oh well.
Because they're not human.
Yeah. And then we see like the Hind and that group show up. So our group has to escape. And so they go into the water and like the Queen's ship finds them, right? And these little stones are little beacons for this ship. And everybody thought that it was Bryce's light that drew them, but it was this little beacon. And we find out that the stone that the Hind dropped was a beacon for somebody to save Sophie.
The Hind is just like, when you figure out the little stone that she dropped in the prologue too with like Sophie, like she did not want to kill Sophie. She had to make it appear that way, but she did everything in her power that she possibly could to try and help Sophie. And the Ocean Queen submarine was just like too late. Mm-hmm. And so you see like all of these little pieces, like Tera talks about these characters giving up pieces of themselves all the time. Like Hind, I don't know how long she has been with this crew and having to put off this very heartless, cold torture facade. But she, even in her interactions with Rune, she makes a comment like, you make me want to be a person again. Like you make me want to live again type of thing.
Which, by the way, we have not told you yet, but the Hind is Daybright. So in her interactions with Rune as Daybright, she is feeling more alive and like she can be her true nature and not have to hide that she isn't this horrible human being or horrible veneer. But yes, so we see that is dropped. The Queen comes, or the Queen's ship, the locked not ship, comes, and our crew is on there, and they let us know that Sophie is in fact dead and they have her body. And so Cormac goes to visit it, and you can tell like Sophie was so close to Cormac. He was in love with her, and he is not himself anymore.
Were they mates? I don't know if it ever said.
Yeah. No, it didn't ever say, but I think so. Like, I don't think that Sophie ever accepted that, but I think that they were. And so he, rightfully so, like he spent like days in this morgue with her body, like just talking to her basically.
When Cormac got mad at Bryce, like I understood why he did. Like he's been trying to help and he's been so transparent about being a part of the rebellion and all of the things that he's been doing.
Well, and he was so transparent about like, this is my way of being here to help Emile. And then after that happened, after he knew that Sophie was dead, he knew like he had to save Emile because that was her dying like wish for him. And he had no other way of honoring the love he had for her besides making sure Emile survived. Right. Yeah. And so I think that hit him twofold because they don't understand that this is the sacrifice he wants to make to honor the love he had for her.
Yeah.
And they're hiding it. And then also they're like thwarting this by doing this. Like he could have worked around it had he known ahead of time. Like he's not going to stop them from doing it, but he could have like made an excuse or like done some sort of like spy magic to keep it going. And so now he feels like they just undermined his like being able to hunt for Emile.
He's having to do so much behind the scenes too, because I don't get a really good vibe from like who his father is too. I mean, his father sounds just like Rune's father. And there was a very touching scene between Rune and Cormac at the bar after so much shit has happened. And they're having a conversation. Cormac is like very lost in his thoughts, having a few drinks. And Cormac turns to Rune and is just like, he almost expresses that he's so envious of Rune. And Rune's just like, why would you be envious of me? And he's like, well, because you didn't let your father break you. I let mine, break me. And it was just such a sad scene. Like in that moment, I felt so much sadness for Cormac.
But looking like outside, I know he feels like he let his father break him. But like looking at what Cormac is doing, Like, I don't think he actually let his father break him. He is somebody that his father would hate,
Yeah.
right? And he's choosing to be that somebody for whatever reason. And I mean, I think the reason is love, because he loved Sophie. But he is choosing to be a person that he knows his father would hate. So I don't think his father broke him. I know it feels like that to him, so I'm not undermining that. But like, as a third party looking in, like, I think his father may have steered some of his, because he didn't want to be like his father, some of his decisions. But I don't think he's broken.
But you see that he went into the next day with that kind of attitude, because he kind of just went like all out, like no plan B. This is what I'm going to sacrifice type of thing. And that makes me sad.
Yes.
We've kind of glossed over the fact of like what all this is. Like, so the rebellion happening, they go to that island to get the weapons and to see what their mech suit technology is looking like. These mech suits can just channel energy directly from First Light and power up. It's like brimstone missiles without having to be fired off, like just on a suit that regular human can wear.
Or the time frame, because didn't they take like a long time to create, like the brimstone ones?
And so they go there to see all of this new tech to destroy it, and then they're escaping. Oh, they do see Baxian, because Baxian is like in his little wolf or hound form, and is just like motioning to them, and they're just like leaving the island at that point. But he was trying to warn them about the hind coming. But we didn't even talk about some stuff that happened on the ship too, because we do see that they retrieve Sophie's body too late. That's why the chains were empty. We don't see the body, though. I kept waiting for them to describe the hand like missing fingernails or something, which they never did.
But Cormac touched her body.
Yes, and you would think that he knows. I'm just like...
You're just hoping Sophie's alive.
I'm hoping something happens, because we still didn't ever get any closure from Victoria being sucked out of her body, shoved into a box, and sent to the bottom of the ocean, too. So I'm like...
Or Justinian. Really?
He ended up dying.
I know, but we didn't get any closure from his death. It was just kind of like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. Victoria can't just be like still in a box at the bottom of the equivalent of, Mariana Trench or something, right?
But we also get a slightly happier scene on that boat, which is like Hunt and Bryce get it on, like to the point that like Bryce ends up teleporting for the first time because their energies like mesh, right? And so she ends up teleporting them to a different area, and she's like, where are we?
They go from like a garden biodome to coming to in an airlock, just out for anyone to be able to see them if they happen to walk by.
And I love like Rune's reactions to like their sex life, because he's like, gross.
He's like,
which is hilarious to me, because Rune isn't like celibate, and his sister has had to live with that, and he's like, now just gross that my sister.
No, we know he's not celibate, because we didn't even talk about this. Like the first part? Yeah, the first part, chapter 3, when he was like, Rune Dannon knew with absolute certainty like 3 things, and it was like the first one was like he was so high off Mirthroot he couldn't feel his face, which was a shame because there was a fawn sitting on it, right? At this party. It was like, I love him so much. He's just that rebellious prince.
Yes. You do enjoy the rebellious princes.
I do. Like I'm a Dorian girl. I'm a Dorian girl.
But so after Cormac like gets blindsided by them at the party, he is mad. Like, so the next day he lets them know, and he's like, what other secrets are you keeping from me? And Bryce is like, none, don't look at my face, like none. And so it kind of gets let out of the bag that she knows where Emil is and that he is safe. And she tells Cormac that, and she's like, he is safe. He needs to stay where he is. Like, he has no powers. Nobody needs to be looking for him. He has no powers. And they're all like, but Sophie said, and she's like, Sophie lied to make it to where somebody would have interest in saving her brother. But he is safe. And I'm with you. I adore that he goes to her parents, because like you get like a little note back about him going on these little walks with like her dad, Randall. And I'm like, this little boy is going to be so loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He needs some love. He has a lot of catching up to do to make him feel like a human being again. Yeah. Ugh, all the feels in that scene. Cormac, it's like, I wanted him to be happier about Emil having a happy ending, but you can't help but feel like Cormac probably, I mean, he was supposed to protect. That's his one promise to Sophie was, I'm going to protect Emil, and he lost him. Like, he couldn't do that. And so for him, it's still probably like a failure.
Well, I don't think it's so much a failure. Yes, he would have liked to have done it, but he brought the people in that then protected.
True. I don't know if he saw it that way.
No, but did you get the sense that he just gave up at that point?
Yes.
Like, when he knew Emil was safe, like, I got the sense that he just, like, gave up. Like, I don't want to be alive anymore, which shows up the next day, which is why, to me, I think that was, in fact, Sophie's body.
Ooh, yeah, that's
because Cormac just gave up, and I don't think he would have given up if there was any hope that Sophie was still alive.
That's a great point.
However, we do have a necromancer, but they mentioned that the person doesn't come back the same, like, at all. It's like they're not with their soul, but like I was hoping that they would come back normal.
Uh-huh. I have so many questions about how the necromancy works. I'm like, so does the body still retain like its powers? Like, for her, would it be, if she was reanimated somehow, would she be able to have like Thunderbird power? Would somebody else be able to inhabit her body?
Well, it mentioned in the book that yes, they do come back with their powers, and that's why like they don't like the necromancers, and that's why the necromancers have been sought like death, basically, because they could create an army of like veneers that didn't have their souls. So they were like not sentient. And so they could make them do whatever they wanted them to do with their powers.
Yeah.
So it's a lot like the Vol creating like the little like rings, taking away their like not abilities to do magic, but like taking away their like ability to do what they want with their magic.
Yes, the rings, the collars, even like the mask that Nesta wears in Silver Flames commanding the dead, like maybe they would just get raised up like that and just, who knows? I don't know. I'm very interested to see where this goes.
That is what it seemed like to me, because it mentions that they don't come back in control of themselves.
Yes.
But if it's Hypaxia bringing them back, like I feel like she would then be like, you're free.
I just feel like Hypaxia has to be so comfortable talking to all things just scary and spooky, because you learn a little bit about her past, which was like, oh yeah, so those teachers that taught me like all these ancient things, they were dead people. Like
my mother had them like trapped, basically. I'm like, oh.
She raised them from the dead, trapped them at the estate, and they were my teachers and best friends. And it's like, oh, bless your heart, Hypaxia. You had such a kooky little upbringing.
It's like Wednesday Addams, like.
Yes.
Welcome to Ophelia Hall. Not a hugger. Got it.
Please excuse Wednesday. She's allergic to color.
Oh, wow. What happens to you?
I break out into hives and then the flesh peels off my bone.
I'm interested to see more about that. I want to go back to the fire sprites because, first off, I love them because they have a little bit of that Lihaba kind of sassiness to them, and they're like just fawning over the boys all the time at this house, you know? But there was that moment where Bryce was talking about, or was it Rune? No, Rune was talking about like, because Lihaba was special to him too. And he was sharing how Lihaba always claimed to be the descendant of like Queen Ranthia or something like that. And they were like, what? Like they acted so shocked, like she was an actual like descendant of that person. There are so few of them left anyway. And was trying to say like Bryce should meet like their queen who is owned by the Asteri, like one of the Asteri. So I'm like, I'll be interested to see where that goes. And then we also learned that Ariadne, one of the things that's so terrifying about a dragon is her fire can like seriously injure, if not like kill, Asteri. So we will see.
And the like Princess of Hell, right?
Oh yeah, the Princess of Hell. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
the Princess of Hell. But there's like so much turmoil. Like that's where it starts getting confusing with the world building, because like apparently, long, long ago, like thousands and thousands of years ago, some Fae and shifters came over to this world, but also there was like the Asteri here who were trying to farm the planet for energy because that's how they're leeches and parasites.
Which is what we find out like later on, because Bryce and Hunt and Ruin go to like the Eternal City, right?
Oh yeah.
At the same time, Cormac and Therian, and I think those two, go to create a diversion. And Therian had previously made a very bad decision because he basically tells the River Queen's daughter, like, fuck off. I'm never
Dude
gonna
is
marry
so
you.
dumb. He pissed me off so bad.
And in doing so, she's like, fine, I'm going to go tell my mom. And so he's like, oh, I've got like very limited time to like do something about this. And so he goes and sells himself to the Viper Queen. So we have Ariadne and Therian now sold to the Viper Queen. And he's like, but before I like go into my debt with you, can I help my friends with this? So he goes and makes a diversion for them to draw away some of the Asteri, because they are going to go try and find this room that Sophie caught onto and visited.
And carved. She carved the cereal into her arm.
And isn't it Baxium that tells him what this code is?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, oh, I know that code. And they're like, how did you know that code? And he's like, well, because I'm Danica's mate. And that's how they all find out that like Danica had a mate and that it's the Hellhound, right? And everything's starting to make a little more sense with the timelines for Danica. And so anyway, so they're going into this room, and Rune and Hunt are trying to find Daybright, who had been kidnapped, right? And they're trying to find her. At the same time, Bryce is like, well, I'll just go into the room and see what I find. Well, what she finds is basically First Light is a battery powering the Asteri. So they are like little leeches sucking like power off of other people. So she is now set on that. And then there's another room that she goes into, right?
She saw rooms like midday, midnight. Oh, she's like, oh, a dusk room. I'm going to go in there. So she finds out way more, which is like the planetary things and a history of like their conquering of other worlds,
other planets,
and what
right?
happened.
Yeah. And so she is like going through this, trying to find like her planet and figuring out like information. So anyway, so you see all of that. You see a few other planets that sound familiar, right?
Uh-huh.
And then she goes to go back to Ruin and Hunt and finds them in chains.
Yeah, Rune's down in the dungeons because his last hint from Daybright was like her mumbling off like dungeons or something. And so he's like, shit, I have to go to the dungeons to save her. So he goes off rogue. And then Hunt sticks around waiting for Bryce because she's taking longer because she keeps going down the rabbit hole to learn more. And then once she finally gets back, Hunt is like chained up with the magic nullifying binds by, is it not Mordock? Who's the other one? Is it not Pollux?
The Harpy?
I can't remember who imprisoned who. Like Rune runs into Mordock, I think, in the dungeons. But like I forget who got Hunt. Maybe it was like Harpy.
Which is interesting because like we find out that the Hind is Daybright in this scene, right? And Mordock was her like second in command. So it's interesting that he is the one like guarding her at this point.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about Rune's reaction to finding out Daybright is Hind?
Yeah, he doesn't
felt
handle
bad
it
for
well.
her. No, he doesn't.
He's like, you're dead to me.
We thought his reaction to like it possibly being Harpy, at the ball was bad, but like once he for sure finds out that it's Hind, it's like he forgets all the good stuff that she had been talking about and working towards and all the ways that she opened up to him, and he's just like disgusted and like looking down upon her. He's having a hard time. But yeah, I mean, shit escalated very quickly once they got to the Eternal City, which they find out, Celestina was feeding their behaviors and what they were doing and where they were and what they were looking into directly to the Asteri. So the Asteri made plans.
Was it Celestina? I thought it was Mordock. He was the one following them around.
It was both, but they do say that Celestina was like reported back to where they were like poking around and, you know, oh, they weren't at where they were supposed to be. And so she was kind of doing that too, but like it came from a good place, right? Like she didn't know, I don't think she knew what the repercussions of that would be. So all this shit happens. They played right into the Asteri's hand, and it gets to a point where, so Cormac is dead. Therian just runs off. Cormac's like, I'm just going to blow this shit up. Like, you just run. And Therian gladly runs.
Again, fuck boy.
No, fuck boy, but I don't know if he's really himself anymore, because when he struck a bargain with the Viper Queen, he had to bite and suck her blood or venom or whatever's inside her body. I'm not convinced that she's just a regular shifter.
Vogue, because that blood oath to the Vogue kind of thing.
Yes. And it's very similar to like how the River Queen is acting. They just seem like they're very like, the River Queen and Viper Queen seem like they're very single-minded in like trying to get power. Like River Queen seems like she is about to start some shit with Ocean Queen, the other courts of the oceans and waters, because they start talking about like ancient worlds and pathways to other worlds under the water and things like that too. It's like shit is about to happen. The River Queen is holding her cards very close to her chest. She's obviously after something. It's like desperate for something. So it's like Therian, she was so bad that Therian sold his soul to the Viper Queen to go get away from the River Queen. Like you hear like him talking about like earthquakes coming, like the water just churning, like when she's searching for him and he's like racing to make this deal with the Viper Queen. It's like, how much power does she have? Very foreboding.
And then you see like Hunt's and Chains, and both Ruin and Hunt are like, go, teleport out, jump through the gate, whatever, try and get somewhere safe. And she's like,
Go to hell.
I'll just go to hell and get them to like come and attack, basically.
They're
and help.
readying their armies.
Yes. And that they'll fight for me, right? And so that's where she attempts to go, but that is not where she ends up. And she ends up in this like little meadow kind of thing, right? And she's like, oh, there's grass in hell. And she's like, this
and
is
a peaceful
weird.
River.
Yeah, she's like, this is not what I envisioned. And then some guy comes up and he's like talking in a foreign language to her. She's trying to get him to take her to Adis. And he doesn't understand what she's saying. And so he blindfolds her and picks her up with his hurt hands, like his scarred hands, and takes her to a house. And she's like, oh, they have tea in hell. And she's just like, this is hell. Like, take me to my place. Hell is weird. A lot different than I thought. And so in walks a little lady. And like, she's like, oh, well, maybe they speak the old language of Fae. And so she talks. And the lady's like, that hasn't been spoken here for like thousands of years. But then they start talking or whatever. And then in walks another couple, one with paint on her. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Sarah. And it is. And the man introduces himself in the old language as Rhysand. And when she sees him, she's like, Rune? And so this is like Rune's twin, which is weird to me that she would think that, because Rune is described as having longer hair and like the etches in his hair. And that's not what I pictured for Rhysand. Like I pictured like floppy, like frat boy hair.
I mean, she's just seeing like tawny golden skin, violet blue eyes, and like dark hair. And it's just like, holy shit, like you are somehow related to him.
Yeah.
She probably thinks he's like a prince of hell.
And because they have the like shadows, you do get the sense that they could be Avalon.
Yep.
And Avalonian? Is that what we're calling them? I don't know.
Avallen? A-V-A-L-L-E-N?
Yeah.
Avallen? Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where we freaking end, right?
There was an epilogue, but it's basically just Ethan like standing watch over the alpha wolf, because we see who is it? Amelie poking around doing Sabine's business. And
then we get like Declan and Tristan calling him, and they're like, get over here now. Shit went down.
No, because Declan's like sitting behind the camera, like watching all this shit happen inside like the Asteri's Crystal Palace.
And he's like, well, I've got to stay here. And they're like, no, you're our brother now. Get over here.
I'm so glad Ethan has a home.
And so he's torn between like the wolves who have like turned him out and the people who like cared. But then he goes, doesn't he?
He takes the wolf and then goes. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not leaving her here. Like,
Yeah.
they're already poking around trying to get to her. I'm taking her. So he like abducts her. So there's so much shit. Like, I can't wait to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. So we know that there's a connection now in ACOTAR and Crescent City. And I have a feeling there's a connection to Throne of Glass too.
Yes.
And I want a Throne of Glass, like Aelin Galathinius, like Aiden, Manon, all of the people, all of the like baddies from ACOTAR, and Bryce and her little group. I want them all converging to just like be like, fuck you to the Asteri, because we've seen that the Asteri has done this to multiple planets, and that they're like the 6 that are here are not the only 6. So like I feel like the 6 that are here like are just a few of what has happened.
They're like these migrating aliens that just
Mhm.
feast on planets. It'll be interesting to see. What do you make of the whole Thea and Peleus lineage? Like, what happened with her? They say 2 daughters. They've only really talked about Helena, but there was another daughter. So Bryce has to be...
Well, yeah, Bryce has to be the other daughter's descendant because she's got the power of Thea, right?
Mm-hmm. And Adis was in love with
Thea.
Thea, yeah.
Which I think is part of the reason, like, some of the people sided with Hel over the Asteri, which is how we got to where we are now, because they knew what was going on with the Asteri. Like, they knew that the Asteri is, like, this not cool bosses.
This prophecy of when sword and knife are reunited, so shall our people be.
The sword and the knife are now reunited because, like, who was it that recognized it? Amryn, I'm thinking, is the character that didn't give her name.
She was like, that's Gwydion, which Gwydion was tossed into the ocean by that queen who couldn't use it, right?
And then it like, so that queen wasn't starborn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like the like connections in the waters, connections to other worlds comes in, because I bet that was how like when Rune went to find it, it was like in some water, right? Like some like land and water and stock. Like it's kind of like a King Arthur, like the Lady of the Lake brings it up kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think that is like your people are being reunited. Was it their choice to come to this planet? Or were they like kidnapped from their planets to then be farmed at this planet? Because right now we don't know. Like it's kind of been like just like assumed by all the people that it was their choice. But like, were the people given a choice to come to this new planet? Or was it like a Noah's Ark kind of a thing? Like where the little aliens were like, we're going to take 2 from this planet, 2 from this planet, 2 from this place. And you're all going to come here and be our little slaves and power us.
I think they were manipulated, right? Into going through into this other world by the Asteri. Because the way that they talk about this misty isle in ACOTAR, where rumor is there might have been an 8th court called Dusk Court. We don't know. But there's this mysterious isle where now we just have an old-ass prison there that's very weird. But if you remember from Silver Flames, when Nesta went to go fetch the harp from under the mountain part of it, and it was like, I feel like it was Gwyn who was singing, and it was transporting Nesta to like under this mountain. She kept getting flashbacks from like an ancient time where these people were screaming and pounding against the cave like they were trapped inside the walls of this dungeon. So it's like, were these the people?
Yeah, see, I don't think it was even a manipulation. I think that there was like a kidnapping situation.
Yeah, and then maybe some made it through. Yeah, probably. Because the book made it seem like Thea kind of believed it and then found out too late and tried to go back, right? So it was like her daughter who went back to try and close all of the gates and ended up closing like the gates to hell too.
And I wonder if that daughter is maybe like a descendant in ACOTAR or even a descendant for Selena. Because we see Selena has a power of light too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see anybody in ACOTAR besides like the Autumn Court that have the power of like light, but it's not the same. It's like fire.
No. Yeah, it's just straight fire. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Hylian kind of.
Hylian is Day. Uh-huh. And we know he's Lucian's real dad.
Yeah. So he kind of has a light power because he breaks the like codes. And if I remember correctly, he broke those with the light, right? Like he had a light when he was breaking them.
Mm-hmm. Curse breaking. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
there's so much shit that's gonna happen. I don't even know. And we've been having like all this discussion. So when we had Jessie from Jim Was Canceled over on the show, and we were talking about Azrael ships, and like she's team Gwyn and Az, and I was like, I really want to see Elaine and Az hook up. And it's like, maybe, I mean, he's met Bryce now. Like, does he go to their world? Like, you know, they're gonna help.
Who is left in the world? Like, that doesn't have a significant other already, though. Because are we thinking like, you know, Bryce throws Hunt over for him? Like, because Bryce is already mated with Hunt. So even if they weren't true mates, and like Az is her true mate, is she just gonna leave Hunt and be like, oh, this is my true mate? Like, I don't necessarily think that. Or
it depends on what happens with Hunt.
Hunt is kind of kinky, it seems. Like maybe they share.
It depends on what happens with Hunt, because they put the
collar back, or the crown back on him.
Crown tattoo thing back on him, and it was kind of like everything went blank for him.
Oh, maybe that did reset the mating that they chose to do.
Like, you know that they can fiddle with that from like what we've learned in other series. And also, like, didn't the Asteri or Regalis make the comment that Hunt was bred? Like when Bryce was like figuring out all the stuff and talking to him.
Yeah, and Hunt's dad is somebody. Like, and he mentioned that Thur was the last person to like go up against them, basically.
Before Danica.
And so I wonder if he was bred. But like, why would they be breeding somebody that would go up against them? Like with significant
Maybe
powers?
he was bred to track down someone else.
Like demons?
Demons, or it's like, I feel like Midgard's definition of what demons are is probably very skewed, because she's looking at all of these bat-winged males in Prithian as demons. So it's like, are they actually demons? Like, is Adis actually a demon? Is Thanatos an actual demon?
Is that like just the like night court members?
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? You also find out like these angels are just the latest version of these experiments that they were doing to try and breed like this superior hunter type of thing. And what we learned from ACOTAR was that the Illyrians came about in a very similar way, and the Seraphim too. They're like all slightly different variations
of angels, of these, like kind of things. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Like, I have a thought, because I forget who made the comment. It was during a previous ACOTAR episode. And we're like, why would Farah and Rhysand do this bargain? Like, when you die, I die? Because wasn't the wording of the bargain that they struck, like, we leave this world together? And so now I'm like, do Farah and Rhysand leave Prithian and go to Midgard? And that's how, like, their death bargain is fulfilled?
I think everybody leaves, like...
But I don't know, because Prithian's the home planet, right? Like, that's where they came from. And it makes it seem like
Well,
Midgard
no, I mean, for the war, I think everybody will leave. Like, I think we will have a big battle in Midgard against these Asteri. And then possibly an even bigger battle against, like, finding, like, when we find out where the Asteri's home planet is. Like, I think we will have everybody go to that planet and, like, kill it.
Which... Didn't Regalis say he couldn't even remember where their home planet was? It's been so
That's
long.
why she was going through the book to try and figure out where their home planet is. I have a feeling it's somewhere in that book. Their origin story.
Yeah. The Asteri are definitely the Vogue, right? Like,
I don't know if they're the Vogue or if they're like, they're very similar to the Vogue.
I mean, they have to feed off these people's souls.
The Vogue didn't like use it as like a battery, right? Like they were able to be sentient and like not have to have somebody else's power to power them.
I don't know.
So I don't think they're like the Asteri currently, but like I think that they are a form of Asteri, right? Like I think that they are similar in that they go to different planets and like eat them, but it's a different kind.
I have so many questions. There's just... Sarah has so much explaining to do. in the next book. I'm like, there's no way in like an 800-page book that she's going to be able to answer all of these questions.
So we're going to have another book, and you've made me read these early, and so now I'm going to have to wait two years for this next book.
Early. It's like Throne of Glass has been done forever, and ACOTAR
I know, but they're not complete series.
We're still getting a television adaptation, aren't we?
I think so, but I thought that was like put on hold for a little while.
Yeah, I thought it was delayed because of the writer strike stuff, but I thought I had read somewhere where it's still happening, which I don't know how this is going to play out, like live action, because there's so many intricate people. You know, you don't want it to look cheesy and fake. And we have everything now. We have wyvern, we have dragons, we have
fae, shifting into wolves. That could go horribly wrong if you do your CGI wrong.
Horribly wrong. That's why whenever years ago news broke out that Throne of Glass was going to be adapted, and then it just, disappeared. And then they said they were adapting ACOTAR. I'm like, okay, I can live with that because of what's happened, as of House of Sky and Breath.
Yeah.
Because maybe we'll get a little bit of everything, but who knows? So we'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like Therian is not himself, and that something bad's going to happen, real bad, caused by Therian, because it even seemed like the River Queen had taken over his mind, right? He has a tether back to her.
You mean the Viper Queen?
The Viper Queen. And like Bryce was or was it Ethan? Like someone was like, he smells different and he's acting really different, like very...
Yeah.
I'm worried for a group now. I hope no one dies.
Well, Cormac already died, so...
He already died. That was sad. Sophie's death was very sad, but I'm happy about Emil. So.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cute that Fury had to be the one to drive him.
And wouldn't get him snacks. She's like, no.
No, get him snacks, you bitch. Aww.
I liked Cormac, though. I'm sad.
I did like him. I grew to really like him. He was just a really interesting character because he was very morally gray, right? He was very troubled. Yeah. It made me sad. So we will see.
Hopefully.
Therian is just on my shit list now. So
hopefully we will find out in the next book.
The part I don't understand is like the Asteri, obviously they win if all-out war breaks loose on this world, right? Because their whole thing is getting their souls, their first light and their second light. So it's like they don't really give a shit whether the rebels and whatever fight. So it's like, is this war going to happen on top of like the Asteri problem? House of Flame and Shadow. I'm just like, all I've heard for sure is there's going to be 3 books in Crescent City. I haven't heard for sure that there's going to be a House of Many Waters. Maybe
we'll figure out that a House of Many Waters isn't an actual house. Like you were saying, there's something weird with the River Queen.
Yeah.
Maybe we will find out that is not, like it doesn't exist after this book or something.
Yeah, maybe. I was texting Tera about this because when we had done our Throne of Glass read along, it was the 4th read through of like Crown of Midnight or 3rd read through. I picked up the part about Baba Yellowlegs telling Selena that waterways lead to other worlds and stuff, which is also why I think that we're going to see like an Easter egg of that book that Cassian threw into the river, Nesta's Christmas present. I think we're going to see it again at some point. There's just too much shit going on with the water and too much focus, like throwaway lines being placed.
It's probably in Jessiba's library.
Dude, yes. I don't know what Jessiba is. I was like trying to think of something Greek mythology that she could possibly be, like some kind of record keeper, or she's not good, but she's not bad. She's kind of neutral and like just keeps the histories and the records and stuff. So I'm like, I don't know what entity or figure does that, but that's what she strikes me as.
Like a Hermes kind of thing. He's like the messenger god. So like she is like keeping the history and messaging people.
Yeah. It's interesting. I also just feel like we're going to have so many bombshells dropped on us on like who's father and mother and like with the Prince of Hells and stuff and Azrael. Like
we know. I wonder if Azrael and Hunt are brothers. Maybe that's what we find out. Because both of their fathers disappeared, right?
Like, it's just not even talked about.
It's like Zeus going around impregnating people. Oh, and
God,
Zeus
yeah.
has lightning bolts.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's Thor. It's Thor. That's the parallel. But yeah, maybe it's Zeus.
Like, and he went around impregnating people like nobody's business. So
Uh-huh.
maybe we'll see Hercules come in. Another one of the
Or like,
brothers.
wasn't it Cassian? Didn't he already draw that conclusion?
I mean, yes, but like maybe there's an
Meg.
actual Hercules coming.
There's some shit that's going to go down because we learned from Throne of Glass that there are these gates that have been left guarded by like spiders that belong to the Vogue, and that Throne of Glass had these black, you know,
Their dad could be Hades with the lightning bolts and like the shadows, because we've already
Maybe.
drawn the Persephone Hades kind of like a
with
connection.
Elaine
Mhm.
and Azrael too. People don't like this ship, but I like this ship. We'll see.
Maybe Azrael's Hades' son, and he's out there doing the same thing with Elaine.
Didn't you see a lot of parallels with Azrael and Rune too? Because Rune has
Mhm.
like the scars on him too from his deadbeat dad. Our poor boys.
They gotta earn their women.
Apparently, they have to go through hell to find some happiness.
They gotta go through hell to grow them up so that they're not Therian and little fuckboys.
Uh-huh.
Maybe this is Therian's hell, or his ordeal, as they call it.
Maybe.
So that he's a better human or better person.
Tara, I am trying to imagine Bryce walking around this fantasy land that's not modern and like, because you know her style is like just loud colors and glitter and sparkly things.
Very
sassy.
Yeah.
And she's going to be in this world where it's like a step back and she's just like can't communicate with anyone.
I don't think she's going to be in that world for very long.
You don't think so?
No, she's going to find out. Like, she's too worried about Rune and Hunt. It's not like she's just going to sit there and be like, oh, here's a tea party. Like,
who is she talking into going with her first back to Midgard?
Oh, Amryn.
Like, you think Amryn's going to go?
Oh, Amryn, yeah.
Amryn doesn't have her powers anymore, though. She's like a regular, normal.
She doesn't have her powers here.
True.
But maybe she would have her powers when she goes back to her home country, right? Like, she doesn't have her powers in this body, but if she goes somewhere else and, like, loses the body.
Maybe she tries to go back to Midgard and they end up in Aurelia and meet Aelin. Like, they just keep landing on the wrong planet. And then she's like, wait, there's shifters.
We know Aelin can do that. So maybe Aelin helps her learn how to get back to the right planet.
Aelin still has a drop of power yet. Maybe.
Because Aelin has fallen through planets and made it back to her planet. So maybe Aelin is how she learns how to, like, figure out her way through the wormholes and end up back in Midgard.
In Throne of Glass, there was lore about ancient times. There was these world walkers, right? So maybe Bryce or maybe our three main women are somehow world walkers or came from some kind of special god line that is able to do that. We don't know.
Or even not, like, maybe not our three main ones, but like maybe this is where Nesta comes in with her like special powers that I think you were right that, what did you say? What object? The horn was part of Nesta. So maybe Nesta and her like calling to those dead troves will call to the horn. And then it's going to be Nesta, Aelin, and Bryce, who are all three very, very similar people, right?
If Feyre's a mom, she's not going to want to leave her baby boy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to.
So, like, Nesta, and I don't think anybody can stand up to those three.
No, like, God help you. Godspeed. Good luck. I want to see Bryce's face whenever she sees a Pegasus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining Helion just like all over himself flirting with her and trying to proposition her because that's what he does to everybody.
But Helion also has the same color of hair. Like, so I wonder if we'll find out after he like propositions her that like she is somehow like related to him.
Ewy. That would be
because that sounds like Helion, and then he's like, oh damn, another one. Because he propositions his like son's mate a few times and like
Cassian and more and Azrael, like all he doesn't care. He's just
like he's
free.
like, who will sleep with me? Who?
Please Yeah.
Somebody has to be willing to sleep with me, right?
Remember when we were talking about Kingdom of Ash and Alien had locked.
You did to me.
I know. Now I did it. And Aelin had talked about locking the gods, like in some kind of hell realm. Well, what if something comes out of that too?
Maybe those are like locked in the same place as Adis. Maybe that's why they want to come out and they're like, these gods are driving me insane. They can have it. We want up here.
I want to see all of this stuff. And I know I'm not going to get all of it because a book can only be so long, but hopefully we'll start seeing.
We see it come out and it's like 1,000, 2,000 pages.
I mean,
and like Sandra's gonna get her
last book is already like super thick. Look at that. It's like
it's 800 pages.
Almost 3 inches. She writes some thick boys. We'll see. So hopefully you gave this episode a listen, enjoyed some of our theorizing
all over the place.
And banter. We were all over the place. It's like these books are so long and so much happens and there's so many main people in the cast. Like you just have to bounce around. But anyway, hopefully we are reading House of Flame and Shadow and we can talk, the first half next week. I don't know how many chapters are in that book, so I'll just like announce on social media like what chapters we're going to cover. So we're going to figure it out and see.
Knowing how fast we are going to make it through that book because like it's all new for everybody, we may end up just like going full tilt.
Also, because there are so many different bonus chapters available on different editions, like I pre-ordered through Walmart, which I have never done and I'm scared, but there was a Bryce and Azrael bonus chapter. So I ordered that one. I think it's those were the characters. So I'm going to be like tracking down all of the bonus chapters that I'm sure will pop up online so that we can read all of those too and have all of the info.
That one, like I hadn't read this half of this book yet. And so I'm like, oh, there is a connection. There is a connection. And then I'm like, oh, we saw it in this book. Never mind. That's not a spoiler for anybody who's read this one. I'm just behind.
No, there were some people that were upset about that, though. I don't think Sarah J Maas really checks her social media comments or anything like that because people are complaining about, you guys need to put a spoiler warning. Whenever you announce like, oh, this edition's going to have these characters on it, that's a spoiler. I'm like, you guys don't have to read the post. Like, the books have been out for a while. Like,
yeah, like if you're behind, you're behind. Like
you're behind. Like, don't look at this stuff if you don't want to see it. That's like saying
like a preview of a movie that's a sequel can't have any of like the like
it's exactly
information from the previous movie. Like if you haven't watched it and they've had time to do a sequel, like that's kind of on you to figure out like whether or not you're willing to get spoilers from watching a trailer. Like don't read it.
Plus, there's that old saying, it's like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So it's like, even if you do notice a spoiler, out of context spoiler, like you still have to read how everything unfolds and how those little pieces fall into place, right?
I mean, I read that and like I got the clue that like something was going to happen. I didn't know it was in this book.
Yeah.
But it didn't ruin this book. Like,
But also like
all.
SJM has left so many hints that something is going to happen. Like so many. Dozens and dozens.
Her saying Azrael's a kinky like doesn't affect my like ability to like read the books and not know something's gonna happen with Azrael and his kink later. Like,
can I just say, I hope after we cover House of Flame and Shadow that we're able to have a fun episode of just like, Michael, if you're listening, you have been talking about us needing to a fuck, marry, kill episode forever.
Yes.
Like we can have
and the BuzzFeed quizzes. Like I am working on this, guys. I want to do these, like, who is Sandra? Like, which SJM character is Sandra? Like, Fury? I mean, I feel like Sandra and her cancer vibes could, like, go full tilt on somebody, right? I also see her as, like, a little Elaine, right? Like, I see me as Nesta, though. Like,
you're a Nesta.
I feel very Nesta-like.
You're
and
also
which is
Nesta.
why when everybody's like, I hate Nesta, I'm like, you bitches.
I will defend Nesta until the day that I die.
Like you just don't understand her.
Nesta is very misunderstood. And they just think she's bitchy and then they just don't care to find out anything more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, Nesta's the best.
Yeah, I like Nesta. But anyway. But I think we should do those. Like, who are you?
We
like,
will.
what does this say about you?
Just giving everyone warning, like once we have talked about every single Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, Crescent City book, we are going to just do like full buffet style. Like if we're going to do a quiz, we're going to do a quiz. And it's going to be full of spoilers probably, but whatever.
Also, like at some point, we will talk David into reading the spicy scenes.
No, he's agreed. So yes, this is happening.
It will
be something
happen.
in Silver Flames, probably.
And like we have to like I feel like there have been 2 scenes from this book that we could like include. The like phone sex and the like sex on the ship that they end up somewhere different.
Even in the gym when Hunt was using lightning on Bryce's clit, basically, like giving her a little zap to push her over. Yeah. David would he's already agreed to it, so he's consented.
It's not forced
Shout out
anymore.
David. Everyone's like, who the fuck is David? David is one of our best friends. We went to college with him and he's a shit.
And go back and watch our
Kissing booth episode
and you will figure out like how funny this is gonna be. Like
Unhinged.
I think the one that like comes to mind, the comment that he made is just because there's a goalie doesn't mean that like you don't try and score still, when he was talking about like chick having a boyfriend. And he's like, just some soccer. Just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you don't try and score.
David says a lot of politically incorrect things by design because that is just how he is. That is his brand of humor. And so before anyone gets all like cancel culture and like crucifying him, it's all just tongue-in-cheek and good fun.
He reminded me of somebody from this book, and now I can't remember who.
Is it Therian?
No, because I don't like Therian anymore. Oh, I think it was Tristan. Because
but do you
Tristan
like David?
I do. Tristan is very like sarcastic and like very like just a shit stirrer, I think is like that is what David is. It's just like I think he says things just to see what people's reactions will be.
Mm-hmm. He like throws stuff out there
to see if he can get anybody like riled, just a little riled. And I think that's what Tristan does. It's like he just says things to Bryce to see if she'll like get her like feelings in a tizzy.
It'll happen. It'll be fun.
I think we should make him take some of those quizzes too. Like, which SJM man are you? So where we can figure out, like, definitively who David is.
Not even just a man. I just want to know what SJM character he is. It might surprise us.
Or his soulmate. Like, I want to see who his soulmate SJM character is.
Shout out Jenny. Sorry, Jenny.
Oh.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our little banter about chapters 39 onward of House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas, which is Crescent City Book 2. So, like we've mentioned several times, we have covered every Throne of Glass book, every ACOTAR book to this point as of this recording, and Crescent City now. So we have 2 episodes per book, except for Frost and Starlight. So more than enough content and just discussions and opinions about characters and plot threads and everything. So definitely go back and check those out if you haven't already.
And a roller coaster of those opinions of characters, because sometimes you love them and then you're like, oh, wait, I have poor taste in men. Never mind.
Yes. Like Adian ended up being a little disappointing how he acted toward the end, but we loved some Adian at the start. But I can't express enough how grateful I am that Tera read all of these books, and now she knows exactly who I'm talking about now if I ever just like see some kind of like eye candy or humorous thing, like she'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I am overjoyed that my bestie has read the series, all of the series now.
Yep. And we will be jumping into a new series of some sort after all of this. It hasn't been decided yet, but it will happen.
We have several book recommendations at our Story Darlings Amazon book club. I think there might be like 60 people in that group now. So I feel like it keeps jumping by 10 every time I report on it. But there are 60 of you in that group now, and there have been several book recommendations. So after we're done with House of Flame and Shadow, we'll definitely get on there and do like a little vote of what we should read. These are not big, thick series read-alongs, which I'm glad about. I know you're ready for a break too. Yeah. So I don't know if we'll be doing that again, but I guess never say never. But
Yeah.
I have a lot of Lucifer to watch because we will be covering Lucifer at some point. So this isn't just like books. Like we'll talk about any story media, right? So it could be a show, it could be a movie. We've done a lot of those in the past, but they'll also always have like a romantic aspect of it, hopefully. Like a little fun, fluffy. So we're not just so serious and dead stuff all the time.
Yes. I can't handle that. It has to be some fun in said book or movie or whatever. But
yep. So we're here. So get ready. Next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about House of Flame and Shadow. And I am so worried for some of our characters. And we will see what kind of shape they're in next week.
Yes.
Well, thanks for listening. And until then,
Bye.
bye.